So we're back for part 2, which will look at these topics. Start looking at the journey through life, essentially. Look at some issues on it, such as the obesogenic environment and alcohol. Disadvantage starts before birth and accumulates through life. Another quote from the Mama Review. This can happen before conception, and here's the classic example of this. As mentioned earlier, long shadow effects can start in previous generations. This is the concept of epigenetics. These effects were first identified in the post-World War II Dutch population. At the end of the war, the retreating German forces denuded Holland of all the food they could find, and a particularly bad winter, the hunger winter, made matters worse. Many children conceived during the hunger winter were small and underweight. What's more, certain health problems persisted long into their adult lives. Compared to siblings conceived before or after famine, the hunger winter children are increased list of obesity, for example. And crucially, in terms of the epigenetic concept, their children also tended to be underweight as well. Interestingly, this was also the same group in which gluten intolerance was first identified. So epigenetics. Epigenetics literally means in addition to the genetic sequence. The term includes any process that alters gene activity without changing the DNA sequence. It's not a mutation. It's a question of whether genes are expressed or not. See this paper by Whitehead for a good review of the issues, and also this actually good video discussing the issues in terms of their effect on public health as well. This is a EU resource for epigenetic science. Of course, a bit of an exaggeration, but it's one that's a reasonably good basis in evidence. This article notes that poverty brings with it a number of different stresses, such as poor nutrition, increased prevalence of smoking, and a general struggle of trying to get by. All of these can affect a child's development, particularly in the brain, where the structure of areas involved in response to stress and decision-making have been linked to low socioeconomic status. There's a link there through to a study if you're interested. Boyce and Hertzmann is a very wide-ranging paper and includes a section on the epigenetics of social adversity, reviewing research looking at whether epigenetic processes may be associated with long-term risks to development and health. It takes data from the Marmot report, including these on rates of poor social and economic adjustment at ages 7, 11 and 17 associated with father's social class at birth. Okay, so adolescence. This is the UK population pyramid for 2021. To make the age groups clear, the data was downloaded to an Excel file which is included with the notes. The numbers in x-axis refer to the age ranges. Adolescence is the phase of life stretching between childhood and adulthood. As this abstract from the Lancet dryly says, the definition has long posed a conundrum. Traditionally, this was defined as between 10 and 19 years. The current definition is between 10 and 24 years, which is seen to correspond more with both developmental and social considerations. The general assumption for the higher age is that at that point people will be living independently from their parents. Lots of developments which I'm not going to go through. You can read lots of information on this in various places, including the WHO link there. Adolescence is one of the most rapid phases of human development. However, the timing and speed of changes may considerably vary between individuals. Significant neurological and cognitive developments happen in adolescence. Allied to these changes are developments in socialisation, personal identity, the growth of social groups outside family contexts. If you want to learn more about the adolescent brain, see this Royal Society video. It's about an hour long, but it's well worth having a watch of. Perhaps some of it's a little bit out of date now, and I do think that neurobiology is an issue with perhaps taking relatively small amounts of evidence and drawing conclusions from it, but it's certainly worth a watch. These data were obtained from a final year project a few years ago. They were obtained from children in Hartlepool and provided evidence of significant changes in food choices between the last year at junior school and the first year at senior school. So this image is linked to an interactive visualization. Okay, a minute up here. You can play with this if you're interested yourself. we've got evidence based on the Ewell plate, now known, of course, as a balance of good health, looking at between the final year of primary school and the first year of secondary school for pupils in Hartlepool, it was. For example, we'll take everything off, if we put on, say, fruits and veg, it'll have a little chunk to do itself. We notice that in primary school, 75% of the Ewell plate recommendation goes down to 55%, I think that is, in the first year of secondary school. Similarly, if you look at fats and sugars, I'll bring that up. We see it was already too high in primary school and is significantly much higher in secondary school. Only a small study, but it was an interesting one with some interesting results. And if you just use the slider, so we look at things that are, say, below 100% between the two groups. We notice bread, pasta, fruit and veg, milk and dairy for secondary pupils. If we look at things that are above 100%, more or less, I've not quite got it 100%. We see, again, fats and sugars. I think it needs to be a little bit further down. Bring that down a little bit. Should it do itself? Yeah, so fats and sugars, meat, eggs and fish. So it's not bad in that context. So have a play with the data and think about the sort of issues that this is causing. Okay, let's close that down. Nice, moving on. Okay, back to where we were. So adolescence. Key trends. This information is from 2011, but still relevant as an overview of the issues of adolescent health in the UK. Some new issues have arisen recently, of course, particularly in terms of isolation. This information linked here is more recent and identifies some interesting trends. Noting that many trends in health behaviours and health outcomes for young people are going in a positive direction, which is, sort of encouraging. On the other hand, rates of non-communicable disease in this group are an ongoing concern, with a lack of reduction in obesity being particularly noted. Again, for more reading, click on the link here. This report notes the overall links between mental and physical health, an issue on which the pandemic may be significantly impacting. There is always studies starting to appear, and in terms of this, we'll see lots of good data over the next few years. Asthma. In the UK, 5.4 million people have asthma, and this is among the highest rates in the world. Asthma UK is a very good resource with interactive data visualisation showing the impact across the UK as well as age groups and gender. Look at the data and notice the difference between emergency admissions and deaths across the age group. It is very striking. Coronavirus and adolescence, mentioned this a couple of times. Link there to some information from The Lancet. Although children and adolescents are generally less clinically vulnerable to COVID-19 than are adults, the wider effects of COVID-19 and national policies may have disproportionately affected the young, is the opening of this very opinionated Lancet editorial. Opinions aside, a number of issues are evident, some of which are noted here. A quarter of pupils, roughly 250,000 people, 2.5 million children in the UK had no schooling or tutoring during the first lockdown, while 74% of those at private schools had full days of teaching. The proportion was only 38% for state school pupils. So that goes back to the conclusions from the Marmot Review. It remains to be seen what the impact of cancelled exams will have on issues like the university admissions and entry into the job market. Okay, adult life. This model by Dahlgren and Whitehead is well known and maps the relationship between the individual, their environment and health. Individuals are placed at the centre and surrounding them are various layers of influences on health, such as individual lifestyle factors, community influences, living and working conditions and more general social conditions. This approach has widespread impact in research and health inequality influences. You'll see this diagram and the conclusions drawn from it all over the place. Yeah, so Dahlgren and Whitehead maps onto the social determinants of health we discussed earlier. This PHE report, or what it calls the wider determinants of health under the following headings: the built and natural environment, education, income, work and the labour market, crime and social capital. Again, maps onto social determinants of health and is consistent with the conclusions from the MARMA review and other relevant authorities. And there's a link there back to Armando's little video on this. Not all influences are positive, of course. A building not too far away from the university, with the, apart from anything else, the very strange hair conservation club. No one really knows what that is. Okay, obesogenic environments. How are we doing for time? I'm going to pause this video and we'll have a second part of it, because I like that video is about 10 minutes long.